Guys, this is a quick demo on getting started with release management, and the focus here would be authoring of release definition. So what is a release definition? A release definition is a way of telling the release service how you want to deploy your apps. And it's not just how, it's actually lets you decide what you want to deploy, how you want to deploy, where you want to deploy, and when you want to deploy. So let's get started. So when you create a new release definition, it prompts you for a deployment template to pick, and this is something that we will delve deeper later. And to give you a brief, it is just makes your life easy in terms of the tasks that you want to use to deploy your apps, but we will go with an empty deployment template and start from there. I will name it as a sample web application, web app RD. We can name it whatever we want. So what it prompts here is that there are no build definition that are linked to this release definition. So what does it mean, right? It means that what is it that you want to deploy, you have to define here. So this is the what part of our deployment process or the release process. So I already have an app which I am building here in the build hub. I would not go deep into this, but let me just explain what this app is. This app is the one which you get by creating a simple application. You say new, and new website is what lets you create this application. So this is a single page application that I have created. It's available in my code. I have already checked it in, and we have already built it. The things that you need to take care is what I'm trying to do in this demo is be able to deploy a web application on Azure. So what I need is a zip file. So you need to need these arguments. I'll publish these arguments as in the help doc, so don't worry about that. And the other thing that you need to do is to publish that zip file. So I have provided where to put that zip file, and this is the selection of that zip file that I generate in this step. So let's come back to our demo release definition that I'm trying to create. So I'll link this release build definition. I have linked it. So this means that all the builds that gets generated out of this build definition would now be available for me to deploy it using this release definition, right? So you can see that a warning message has gone, and what it has done is created an entry in the artifacts tab. You can actually go ahead and link multiple artifacts if your application consists of multiple components that you want to deploy, and all of which are coming from different build definitions. So coming back to our demo release definition, I will name this environment. So this column, if you can see, there are three columns here. The first column is to define your environment. This is the where part, or this is a logical grouping of your environment, saying that, okay, I have multiple environments. So you can have a dev environment, test environment, QA, or test the same int environment, or staging environment, pre-prod, prod, or n number of environment that you want. And you can go ahead and deploy to each of these environments as you want to sequence your deployments to these environments, right? Now, for this environment, I need to define the way I want to go ahead and deploy my bits. So how do I do it? So I add some tasks here. So since I am doing a web app deployment, I will choose this one, but you have plethora of tasks here, and you can as well go ahead and create your own task and make it appear here. But that's the subject of another video. We'll discuss it later. I can add multiple tasks here depending on my need. Typically, I'll have n number of tasks which deploys my app. Then there would be a task to test my app, and there might be a post task to go and verify some of the things that I have done. But yeah, for demo purpose, I'll just use one task. If you can look at the third column is basically the task details. It asks me to pick some parameters for its whatever it needs. So first thing is it needs Azure subscription. Obviously, I'm doing a web app deployment on Azure, so it needs an Azure subscription. You can go to manage link to see more about the services that are available to you. What I have already created is Azure subscription, so I'll use one of them. So I'll just use one of them here, and then web app name. So I'll say this is my sample web app demo. So let me just copy it so that it's something that we can check after the deployment happens. and what is it that I want to deploy. I'll let the other ones blank or default, whatever it is, because that's not so important. So I need the zip file. So since I know there is only one zip file, I can put a pattern here, which is **/star.zip, or I may go ahead and choose using this artifact picker. So it lets me choose from the linked artifact. Remember, we linked a build definition, so it is showing me the latest build drop file structure so that I can pick up the right zip. So I press OK, and that sample web application vs.zip is selected. So this is all I needed. Let's go ahead and see if this .cloudapp.net is available. Obviously it would not be, because this is not yet deployed. I'm assuming this name is unique. Nobody else has taken this one. I hope it is unique. So let's see. We'll save it. So I can just go ahead and release it. But before I do that, let's go and look at other tabs. So we already looked at artifacts. There is a configuration tab which is for variables. Suppose you wanted to use this web app name as a variable, because so let's just do that, and then I will tell you why we want to do that, right? So I'll just say this is web app name, right? And this is the variable that I want to use. So what I can do here is, I can, in the configuration, I can say web app name. This is the variable name, and this is the value that I want, right? So now this will be replaced with the variable's value, and it will be available to me. What is the use of it? So suppose I have multiple environments here, and for each of the environments you won't have the same web app name. So you can change the web app name in the configuration variables here. For example, I can say web app name again here and give it a value. Suppose this is dev, right? So now this is, so I don't need to change this task parameters. I can just say, okay, go ahead and copy this one. So I can clone this environment and maybe make it test. Now in the test hub also, it's making use of this web app name, but in the, sorry, I have cloned it again, but let's say I wanted to do that. So I will say preprod. Here what I'll do is I'll go to configuration variables again, and if you see, this is test, so I can make it test, right? And in the preprod, suppose I want to go ahead and say it is pp, right? So that's all I needed. So if you look at this parameter, it remains the same. So that's the benefit of variables. And there are also some predefined variables that you can use. You can go and look at the list of predefined variables. One such example is this system.defaultWorkingDirectory directory is nothing but where your artifacts get downloaded onto an agent. Coming to the agent options. So when you trigger a release, right? So let's just go ahead and trigger a release. So let's say create a release. Let me pick the right build. So I pick the latest build and I say let's deploy to all of this. I can choose to deploy to some and not all of them. So I say create. So look at this. There is a description. What it essentially means that it says there are no agents for me to run. So what does that mean? So I was just coming to that. Before that, let me so I just wanted to show you the error first. So what happened here is there are agent options. So what are these agents? Agents are the compute which lets you deploy your app. Now agent is nothing but, you can say it's the compute of release management. So agent is the actual software that runs your release process for each of these environments. So you can pick different agents for each of those environments. That's why you see agent under this environment configuration, right? Environment options. So there are some concepts for agents which we will discuss later. For now, what you need to understand, there is a default agent queue or a hosted one. Hosted one lets you run it on the cloud, which is provided by Microsoft, and you would be charged for it. There would be some free minutes and then you would be charged for it. So I'll just use this hosted for now and proceed ahead. Similarly, I'll go to these and change it to hosted. And yeah, so let's go to the next tab, triggers. So this is the when part. When do you want to deploy your app? Either you can choose nothing here and you can queue or build whenever you want, or you can say I want a continuous deployment system where it will say, okay, which artifact do you want to pick? There is only one artifact here. If you had multiple, the multiple option would show here, but here it is for demo. So we need just one artifact. So this means that as soon as a new build is produced for this build definition, a release would be triggered. So this is the continuous deployment pipeline that it creates, right? Where do you want to deploy it? I will say let's just deploy it till test. I'll just skip this pre-prod, and that is what it will happen. So it will deploy to dev. Once dev is completed, it will deploy to test. Tomorrow, release management would also let you deploy in parallel, but at the time of recording this video, that facility was not available. In the general tab, it lets me choose a release name format. So by default, it says release -rev:_r, which means it will be called release 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, right? Let me say I want to call it rel, which is release, and then I want to call it with the build number, right? So I can also have a rev number. Suppose I want to do multiple deployment from the same build. I want to increment my build release number. So let's say I want build number here. So I'll say build dot build number and then hyphen. So now my release will be called release hyphen the build number that I'm going to deploy, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how many times I deploy the same build. History tab is to tell you how many times you change this definition. So there are 2 changes already being done. So I have saved it once, I save it again, the third one will come here, right? So let's see. This is the third one that came here. So that way you keep a track of all the changes and you are not lost if in case you make some inadvertent mistake, you can come back to it. So now before I go ahead and create a new release, I would like to discuss one more important concept in release management, and that would be approvals. You can see these human icons with a number here. Right now it says 0. So this means there are 0 approvals for all of these environments. So what are these approvals, like what do they mean? Let's go ahead and find out. So it gives me an option to assign approvals, and it gives me 2 options here. One is the pre-deployment approver and the next one is the post-deployment approver. That means I can assign some people here who can go ahead and approve the deployment on this particular environment. So this is pre-deployment approver, and then I can also say whether my release should move ahead, because if there are some failures here, I can assign it to some people who can look at all the results and say, okay, this release is busted, so let's just abandon this release. So let me just go ahead and assign a person here, and have assigned. Similarly, I'll do the same for test environment. So I will say I have a pre-deployment approver. I can as well go ahead and assign a post-deployment, but for demo purpose, this should be fine. I save this, and now I am good to go. So I'll just create a new release. It asks me a couple of questions as which build to pick up. I will pick up the latest build, and I will also select the target environment. I don't want it to deploy to pre-prod. I'll just deploy it up to test. So I'll create this release. See the nomenclature here. It says rel hyphen. This is the build number that we picked up, and this is the first iteration of this one. So this is all about my release. Maybe I can also show you the continuous deployment, because we had set triggers saying that whenever a build is ready, there would be a new release that would be triggered. So let's just do that, right? So where is the build? Here is the build, and I can say queue a new build. Yes, so I have queued a new build, and that build number is 20151110. So now once this build is completed, I should see another release starting on the release hub. So it should say rel .20151110. So we will see that. So as of now, we can go to the releases tab, and this has just started, is waiting for my approval. I can go ahead and approve it. We can get into the details of the release and see what all it shows. So it shows a nice overview. Right now I don't have any work items listed here, so it does not show me work items. It can show you commits, it can show you work items, but yeah, I don't have an example. That would be something that I will show in later videos. What it would be interesting for you to look at the logs. So it seems that this release has been queued and it is waiting to start. And once the release starts, you can see the live logs coming in here. So a bit fast forward here, the agent has been assigned, so you can see the hosted agent, it is running on that. And we are on to the uh, deploy step, which is Azure deployment. So a bit fast forward again, and now we see the deployment is completed on dev environment, and it is waiting. The release is waiting for me to approve it for test environment. So I can go ahead and look at the website whether it is up and running, and if we had some test tasks there, we could look at the test results to figure out whether everything is fine. So right now we'll go and look at the sample web app demo dev.azurewebsites.net. Remember, I had mentioned cloud app here before, but that was wrong. This is a website deployment, so the URL should be azurewebsites.net. So let's see. And as you can see, this has loaded the web page. So this is the default page that you land up in if you use the default website in Visual Studio. So that's all I had to show. And yeah, we also started a build. So let's see where is our build. So build has succeeded. That means our another release should start. So we'll go ahead and look at our releases. So there is another release which is now, if you can look at the name, it is 2015.1110.1-1. So this is the release that got started due to continuous integration, and the icon says that. So this is the continuous deployment icon which says that this was auto triggered. So I hope you got something out of this video and you like it. If you want me to cover any other video, do let me know. You can comment on the YouTube channel, and I will try to cover that as well. Thank you.